I never had French. I took Spanish for several years, so my French is non-existent. But the words of the day, don't evap. Don't evap. Let me go to my pronunciation guide. I hope this plays through.
Dans les vapes.
Don't evap.
Dans les vapes.
Don't evap.
Dans les vapes.
Don't evap.
Dans les vapes.
Don't evap. Okay, why am I speaking French? I will tell you in just a moment. It's really unbelievable. First of all, what a weekend. Thank you, Parks Casino. Tonight, 8 p.m., Detroit Pro Football, a 9-point home fave hosting Washington in this division of the divisional pro football playoff. I love Detroit, but I don't know. Something about Washington and those 9 points. Just saying. 4:30 p.m., Kansas City, 8.5-point fave hosting Houston. I think Kansas City covers. Sunday, 3 p.m. here in Philly, 3 to 4 inches forecast of snow for tomorrow. And against that backdrop, Philadelphia is a 6-point home fave hosting Los Angeles. And then Monday night, after the inauguration, inside Monday night, the college football championship between Notre Dame and Ohio State. Ohio State, a 9.5-point fave. Whether your team scores or not, there's always another way to win on the Play Gun Lake online casino and sportsbook app in Michigan or the BetParks app in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, or Maryland. BetParks and Play Gun Lake, the only apps that I ever use and recommend to bet sports and play all your favorite casino games for real money. When there's downtime in the action, you get snowed in, play some blackjack or craps or roulette. Play blackjack with a live dealer. You'll love it. Download the app right now. Enjoy all the action and excitement from the casino at your fingertips. New users, special deal for you, $1,000 bonus. It's got to be wagered. PlayGunLake.com or BetParks.com for details. Got to be 21. And in Michigan for the Play Gun Lake app, you've got to be 21. And in PANJ, Michigan for BetParks. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Don't evap. Don't evap. Don't evap.
Dans les vapes.
Don't evap. Here's why I'm saying these strange French words to you today. The poll question at Smerconish.com today on this Saturday asks whether opinion of Joe Biden's presidency is going to get better with the passage of time. And yesterday on radio and today on television, I'll repeat, I offered all the data that speaks of job approval and favorability, two different things, interconnected, for both outgoing President Biden and incoming President Trump. Trump's numbers exceed Biden on job approval and favorability. In fact, Biden is leaving the White House with the lowest numbers that he's had during the course of his presidency and some of the lowest numbers of any president leaving the White House. I think Trump is benefiting from a comparison to Biden. And as I said on radio yesterday, the silver lining, maybe, for Joe Biden is that Jimmy Carter was in a similar position, but he rebounded over time. Then again, Jimmy Carter had 50 years post-presidency. Godspeed to President Biden. Hope he lives a very long and productive life, but let's just say it's highly unlikely that he's going to have as much time on the clock as Jimmy Carter, right? So, but I think his numbers will boost. But now, as we evaluate President Biden, comes some remarkable reporting. In each instance, initially from the New York Times or the New York Times reporters, that causes me to say that's really, why didn't we know sooner? And the first of these stories was yesterday, and I read from it extensively on radio, written by Annie Carney, who will be my guest on CNN today, and Luke Broadwater, who are the authors of a forthcoming book, Madhouse, How Donald Trump, MAGA Mean Girls, a former used car salesman, a Florida Nepo baby, and a man with rats in his walls broke Congress, from which this article is adapted, the story in the Times yesterday. And this is the story that tells us so many things in terms of what was going on backstage, not the least of which is that Chuck Schumer made a trip, drove 4 hours from Brooklyn to Rehoboth Beach to sit and to plead with President Biden that he not run, and to tell President Biden that he had lost the caucus, the Democratic caucus. And there were so many revelations in it like the fact that Schumer tells Biden that, at best, he's got the support of 5 members of the Democratic caucus, about a fifth of the caucus, and Biden is disbelieving. And Schumer wants to know of President Biden, are you looking at the poll numbers? And Biden shakes his head no. He's not being shown the poll numbers. Schumer is there because Obama tells Schumer he's got to be the one to make the trip because Obama has such a frail relationship with Joe Biden, given what happened in 2016 when Biden cast his lot with Hillary and not with Joe. There's also the anecdote of Democratic Senator from Rhode Island, Jack Reed, who behind closed doors says in the Democratic caucus that such are his concerns. By the way, I'm just spitballing here from memory of reading the story, but read it for yourself. It's in today's newsletter. Yesterday's New York Times story is in today's Smerconish.com newsletter. Jack Reed is so concerned about Biden's frailties that he says he wants 2 neurologists to evaluate him and opine, and then he wants Biden to hold a presser and answer any question that gets raised. Meanwhile, John Fetterman in the same caucus tells the Democrats who are concerned, grow a spine, for which he's then scolded by Chuck Schumer. So all of this is taking place, and we are in the loop for none of it. Like, I get that they have concerns about the electability of Biden, but wherein lies the duty to the country to express these concerns if he won't get out? And he didn't until after that disastrous debate, and then all of this cajoling. So there's all of that. And now, unrelated to the book, comes today's front page story of the New York Times. This is not Annie Carney and Luke Broadwater. This is Katie Rogers, Adam Entis, Maggie Haberman, and Carl Hulse. I know it gets blurry. I'll step away and you can see the headline. Shit. Well, here's what the headline says. How Biden's inner circle shielded his stumbles. And the Times today goes through sort of chapter and verse. Like there were 6 people tasked with shielding from the public the evidence of his growing diminished capacity. The people closest to President Biden were well aware that he had changed. He talked more slowly than he had just a few years before, needed to hoist himself out of the seat of the presidential limousine, walked with a halting gait. Quote, your biggest issue is the perception of age, Mike Donnellan, the president's longtime strategist, told him in mid-2022, according to 3 close aides who heard it. That bit of feedback delivered repeatedly by Mr. Donnellan was the sort of blunt talk that did not often make its way to a man who had spent half a century in politics prizing loyalty and deference. It's like the emperor has no clothes. Nobody wants to speak truth to power. I know, I've been in these kind of scenarios, and maybe you've been in these kind of scenarios. Nobody wants to be the bearer of bad news, especially if you're near a president of the United States because you think it's going to jeopardize your access. Mr. Biden acknowledged the concerns, but the warnings only ignited his defiant competitive streak. In April of 2023, without convening his family or having long deliberations with aides, he announced he was running again. Now, as President-elect Donald J. Trump heads back to the White House, demoralized Democrats debate what might have happened if the president had bowed out in time to let a younger generation run. Mr. Biden, 82, has at the same time made the extraordinary admission that he might not have made it through a second term. Quote, who knows what I'm going to be when I'm 86 years old? That would be his age at the end of a second term, he told USA Today. The president's acknowledgement has put a new spotlight on his family and inner circle. And then the story continues on and talks about who are these folks who shielded him, most notably the First Lady. And then it's a full page. It's a full page. And then there are anecdotes of what they did and how they had limited success. They would surround him as he went to Marine One so that the cameras couldn't get a clear shot of his gait. They had him use a teleprompter even for small fundraisers in private homes, alarming donors who were asked to provide questions beforehand. They came up with replacing the grand steps on the president's used to board Air Force One with a shorter set that led directly into the belly of the plane. They chastised White House correspondents for coverage of the president's age. That's probably the worst of all. They shamed journalists who were asking appropriate questions. And then those journalists, fearful that their access would be limited, they backed off. Six key people protected the president. The First Lady, Hunter Biden, Mr. Donnellan, Steve Ricchetti, his counselor, Annie Tomasini, Anthony Bernal, the First Lady's most senior aide. And then, the president got his dander up, got his Irish up, didn't want to be told. He was very proud. He insisted on riding the bike. Before the inauguration, when he had tangled with one of the dogs, I forget the name of the dog that bit everybody, but, he injured his foot. And then he refused to wear a prosthetic boot because of the optics of it, didn't want to be sworn in wearing the boot. So he wore something instead. After fracturing his foot while playing with one of his German shepherds shortly before his inauguration, he refused to wear an orthopedic boot. He did not want to be seen as weak. A 78-year-old president with his hand on a Bible and a large telltale contraption on his foot. He wore leather brogues instead. The end result, his friends and advisors say, was a fracture that did not heal, contributing to a shuffling gait that has continued through his presidency. And then he makes a trip there's much more to it than I can summarize in our short time together, but he makes a trip to France for the commemoration of D-Day, and this is where my friend comes in. People who were there say that he appeared disoriented at events and at times gazed off into the distance. At a state dinner at the Élysée Palace hosted by President Emmanuel Macron, a member of the French presidential staff approached an American attendee and asked with concern about Mr. Biden's health. I have to sneeze. Hang on. Sorry about that. Thank you. An attendee asked with concern about Mr. Biden's health, saying he appeared don y va. The Frenchman wants to know, what's wrong with the president? He appears don y va, French slang for out of it or in a fog. The trip occurred at the same time that Hunter Biden was on trial for the gun charge. What's the point, Michael? The point is, people around him had an obligation to confront him, and if he wouldn't acknowledge and back off from running for a second term, then they should have said something. That's what I think. If such was their concern about his frailties that they needed to shield him, they should have taken action. And the media should have done more. We shouldn't be learning these things 48 hours before Donald Trump is sworn in as president. And I have to say something else, and it's uncomfortable because, I do believe he's a good person. I do believe that the president is a good person, but I'm disappointed in him for the reasons that I'm expressing. At what stage is he selfish? At what point is it incumbent upon an individual to say, my time has come? Right? It's Kenny Rogers. You got to know when to hold him and know when to fold him. I hope I do. I hope I know when to fold him. Yeah, that's what I think. And I mean, like back-to-back stories, yesterday from the book and today with separate reporters. It's very good reporting, but I wish we had known sooner. And by the way, for those of you who are upset about Donald Trump being sworn in on Monday, you should be most upset. You should be most upset because this precluded Democrats from finding an alternative different than Kamala Harris. Because I still say if she had to fight for it, she wouldn't have won a blitz primary. After all, she dropped out in the last cycle before a single vote was cast. Don't give up. It's a lot to mull over, isn't it? It's a lot to mull over. Will his numbers get better over time? That's the poll question today. Probably they will, in spite of everything that I've just told you. In spite of everything that I've just told you. Please like and subscribe and set yourself up for notifications for my YouTube conversations. I appreciate all of you. I said yesterday, my travel schedule is such, you need to be understanding and realistic when I tell you this. I got a lot on my plate. I do a lot of travel, as you know. It's not always possible to be here live. Every opportunity that I can, I am. Okay? But some instances necessitate, you remember John Lennon, right? Life is what happens to you when you're busy making other plans. My plan is to be with you at the same bat time and the same bat station. But when that's not possible, you're going to have to roll with it. And I'll deliver whenever I'm able to deliver. So please like and subscribe and set yourself up for notifications so that you never miss anything. Go vote at Smerconish.com. Will opinion of Joe Biden's presidency get better with the passage of time? Go Birds. Go Lions. See ya.